big story that we are tracking at the top of this hour. Donald Trump, the US president, he's making headlines yet again, this time for reaching out to Tehran and expressing his desire to make a deal with Iran. Now, reports suggest that Trump has written to Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, in an effort to establish communication and potentially negotiate a deal. This entire move, it is being seen as a significant shift in Trump's approach to Iran, given his previous stance on the country. Remember, during his first term in the office, Trump's administration pursued a campaign of maximum pressure on Iran, imposing crippling sanctions on Tehran. And my colleague Mohammad Ghazali joins us on the broadcast to get us more on this. Ghazali, what could be the motivations behind this particular outreach, and what prompted Donald Trump to reach out to Iran, and what are his primary objectives in establishing communication with Iran?
See, Donald Trump, before even while he was campaigning for the presidential office, had said very clearly that during his term, he will try to end all the wars. And one by one, if you see the developments in the last 24 to 48 hours, the reports coming out of the United States, that's how the United States administration has been in talks with Hamas. And now with Iran, it certainly shows that coercion and pressure, or maximum pressure, is not the only tools of diplomacy, is something which the US administration has realized and is now going towards negotiation, which always happens to be the best tool in diplomacy. Mr. Trump must be he must be aware of the fact that how China, Russia, and Iran are a good team. Are a good team in the sense that both Russia and Iran were facing sanctions from the West that brought them closer. Iran was also assisting Russia in the Ukraine war. It was providing arms and ammunition. There were reports that how Iran was also sort of fixing those damaged drones which Russia was using in the war and was resupplying it back to Russia after fixing those things. So we also know that how China, Russia, and Iran are working closely in tandem, and perhaps this could also be one of the reasons why Mr. Trump doesn't want this team to prosper and wants to break that, what we can say, the coalition between the three countries. The other reason could be that Mr. Trump doesn't want stability in the Middle East, and that is why he was considering, or his administration or his aides were talking to Hamas about releasing the US hostages who are kept in captivity by Hamas in Gaza Strip. We also know that how Iran has often been blamed for destabilizing the Middle East region through its proxies, be it the Houthis in Yemen, be it what we saw Bashar al-Assad and his regime in Syria. And then it also gives ample support to Hamas in Gaza Strip, in West Bank. So this could be one reason that why he wants to at least send out a message, kind of negotiation with Khamenei of Iran, the supreme leader there, because all this while, as you rightly pointed out, in his first term, we saw that how Mr. Trump was responsible for killing one of the top aides of Khamenei, Qasem Soleimani. And after that, the maximum pressure policy of Donald Trump of keeping sanctions on Iran, on its oil, and recent reports also coming out that Mr. Trump is giving out mixed signals. On one side, he says that he will put sanctions on Iran, he'll put sanctions on its oil and other resources, and won't allow any other entity to have business or dealings with Iran. But the very next day, he says that he wants a peaceful Iran. He doesn't want Iran to destabilize the Middle East. So the larger idea could be to have a stable Middle East, what his predecessor, Joe Biden, didn't have in the last 3-4 years since the war broke out. So the idea could be to have a stable Middle East, to have no more new wars in the region, and also have good relations with all its adversaries and directly dealing with them without engaging, without involving any of its allies as a mediator.
Right. This is definitely, Ghazali, a shift in approach from the United States towards Tehran. And we can say that it's a deviation from Donald Trump's previous stance on Iran. And as I mentioned, particularly his maximum pressure campaign during his first term. Now, what does it mean for the United States and Iran relationship? And what are the potential implications does this outreach have for US-Iran relationship? And could it lead to a significant shift in their diplomatic dynamic now?
See, there is a major concern for United States to ensure that its own influence in the Middle East region, in the West Asia region, doesn't diminish, because we saw back in 2023 that how China was responsible for bringing Iran and Saudi Arabia closer. And that is when talks started doing the rounds that perhaps US's own influence has gone down, and China, a country from the South Asian region, had to go and get the mediation done. Similarly, when it comes to Russia, we have seen that how for the Russia-Ukraine war, US's stance, or at least Mr. Trump's stance, has changed, and it has more or less isolated the entire Europe by backing Russia in the war, by criticizing Zelensky or pressurizing him to sit for the peace deal. He is somewhere trying to do the same thing with Iran. On one side, pressurizing, saying that we will put maximum pressure, already signed an executive order after assuming the office. And the very next post in Truth Social saying that, oh, we see Iran as a lovely partner, as a lovely friend. We want it to prosper. We want Iran to be peaceful. So there is this carrot and stick approach of Mr. Trump in every case is becoming very visible. But it is a very wise move also, considering the fact that he wants the region to be stable, because even after multiple wars going on in the Middle East, still the West believes that it is Iran which kept sort of propping its proxies in every country, almost in every country. So Mr. Trump doesn't want that entire scenario to continue. He has already pushed for ceasefire in Gaza. He is already in talks with Hamas, and now with Iran. So certainly a big diplomatic move from his side to at least start dialogue with Iran, and that to admitting it on record, because since 1980s, Iran and United States don't have a diplomatic relations after the Iranian Revolution, when the U.S. embassy was taken over by the protesters back in Iran. And now admitting it on record certainly shows the kind of intent Mr. Trump has when it comes to relations with Iran.
Be interesting is to see the international reaction, and especially from countries such as Israel and Saudi Arabia, as well as the other European nations, to this Trump's outreach to Iran.
We can say that it should be seen as a big setback for Israel, because Israel has all this while appealed the previous U.S. presidents, even to Mr. Biden, even before Mr. Biden. Israeli establishment has always wanted U.S. to fight its war. All this while, the policymakers, the think tank, or the policy analysts back in Israel keep appealing United States to fight its war against Iran. If you see the headlines since this war has broken out in 2023 October, Israeli analysts keep pressurizing United States to fight its war, finish off Iran, finish off this regime, keep inciting against it. But Mr. Trump doesn't seem to buy that logic, because if you see his administration directly dealing with Hamas was itself a big setback for Israel. So the U.S. administration kept saying that they have kept Israel in the loop. But the reports emerging out of Israel suggested that perhaps they were not consulted before talking to Hamas, before the U.S. got into negotiations with Hamas. And this particular story that Mr. Trump has written, the supreme leader of Iran, is certainly would turn out to be a big setback for them as well.
All right, Mohammad Ghazali, thank you very much for getting us all the latest as far as this latest development is concerned. In fact, I also have a guest at this point, Mohammad Khatibi, an analyst, Press TV. Mr. Khatibi, welcome to NDTV. What do you think motivated Mr. Trump's change in this approach towards Iran?
Trump is trying to... Hi, thank you for having me, and we start with this. Trump is trying to deal with China, and because of that, he is trying to slow down conflicts in the Middle East, and especially with the problems with the region and Iran. And the new thing that he said about writing a letter to Iran's leader is nothing new. He tried once in his first term, but Iran's leader refused to answer him because of his attitude. So as you see, Trump is trying to pressure everyone to his will. But Iran's leader and the whole Iranian people are not willing to negotiate with the person that wants to dictate what he wants. Iran will negotiate if Trump and his team respects Iranian nation and Iranian people. But I think Trump is just putting more pressure on Iran and on Iranian people instead of trying to reach a nuclear deal or something else. And because of this, yes.
Mr. Khatibi, I also want to understand from you, what does it mean for US's allies in the Middle East, and especially will countries like Saudi Arabia and Israel view this as betrayal? What do you think is their opinion of this?
I don't think it's betrayal of Israel, because he wants to put pressure first, and if Iran does not respond, he will greenlight Israel and its allies in the Middle East to attack or maybe put military pressure on Iran, and he is trying to negotiate first. But I think this is a step to escalate the pressure on Iran, and it's some kind of he is trying to put more pressure because of Israel, and Israel wants to drag U.S. to the war in the Middle East, but Trump tries his best to avoid it by sending letters and sending offers and wanting to clear the Middle East from conflicts by talking and negotiating. But Israel does not want this, and by the way, Trump will not do anything that hurts Israel. As we are seeing the situation in the Gaza Strip and his remarks about the Gaza Strip, about displacing all of the population in the Gaza Strip, he will not do anything that will hurt Israel. And we Iranians, we know this well. And if Trump wants to negotiate with Iran, he wants to secure Israeli interests in the region and not Arabs, actually. Trump is concerned more about Arabs, concerned more about Israel than Arabs.
All right. Well, how does this move fit into Trump's broader foreign policy strategy? We'll have to wait and watch. Mohammad Khatibi, thank you very much for speaking with NDTV.